Hello, everyone. Welcome to another podcast. There's something different about the way I look today. I'm not wearing the hat. I know that people like me to wear this hat, but for this one, I'm going to go without the hat and see if I feel comfortable. Not maybe in future episodes, not wearing one, but I've been wearing a hat for 2.5 years. So someone out there says that get rid of the hat and I'll watch your episodes. And I'm like, okay. So, everyone, today's special interview, we are thrilled to have with us incredibly talented and multi-award winning jazz guitarist, filmmaker, and educator, Kerilie McDowall. With a career spanning over 3 decades, Kerilie has made significant contributions to the world of jazz and beyond. From her acclaimed jazz documentaries to her impactful work as a guitar instructor, Kerilie continues to inspire and innovate. So, everyone, let's dive into her journey and insights, and let's welcome Kerilie McDowall. Hello there.
Hello, thanks. That was quite the introduction. It's wonderful to be here.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm actually so thrilled to have you because I did a lot of research on you, and that's except I don't know, what your blood type is, but just just joking. Um,
There's a lot there to read, I guess, on my website too. There's a lot. Yeah. Mhm.
so, Kerilie, I really appreciate this opportunity to interview you and talk to you. I'm looking so forward to learning all about you and your music. Can you tell us about your early beginnings of music? Like what inspired you to pick up the guitar?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll just go back a little first, just so you can get the background. Like probably by the age of 3 or 4, I was just in love with music, and I think I remember like when I met Dave Brubeck's son, the drummer. I told Dan, I said, you know what, Dan? I said, I'm not making this up. When I was 3 years old or 2 years old or something, I was dancing around in little circles. When you turn yourself around in circles as a kid, you just try and make yourself dizzy because it's fun game. Well, I was doing that to like Dave Brubeck's Time Out, right? I remember Take Five. And so, I remember doing that, but so like my love for music was really quite young. My mother was playing symphonies to me in the womb and everything. And so by the time I was 3 or 4, I was really interested in music, and I was playing toy pianos at first, and then I was like begging my dad to buy me a piano. Like I begged him, and then he finally bought me a piano. And I only had access to it occasionally because he lived far away, but I did have access to it. And then I started playing, instruments like the violin at school and playing in orchestra, and then later studying privately at the Royal Conservatory in Toronto, violin. But later I got introduced to the guitar somehow really randomly. Like what happened was, this is going to sound like a strange story, and it is. I was at a monastery of all places. My mom used to take us up to a monastery in Bracebridge called, I can't remember what it was called, but it was this lovely monastery in Orangeville, I think it was, and Bracebridge. And we'd go up there just kind of like as a retreat, on the weekends sometimes. And one day they had a guitar, and they were all in a vow of silence, all the monks, right? Like they were monks, Anglican monks. And they were all in a vow of silence. And listen, they were wonderful people. But they got a little upset with me because I was playing the guitar in the common room, encouraged by a guest who we didn't really know I wasn't supposed to be doing that. So anyway, I was so kind of like enchanted with the guitar that I actually brought it outside into the forest with me, because I was like a rebellious teenager. I was like maybe 12, 13 years old. And I thought, I'm going to play this guitar. They're telling me I can't play this guitar. I didn't really have attitude, but I really wanted to play it. So I went outside into the forest with it, and I really kind of bonded with the guitar doing that. And so ever since then, I've had this relationship with the guitar. I've had periods of hiatus, but I always return to it, and I've enjoyed teaching guitar and performing. Like I was a band leader, jazz band leader in Vancouver for a decade from 19, when was it? I guess it was 1990 to 2000, and then I moved to Vancouver Island here. So yeah.
Wow. Do you remember what your very first song you started playing on the guitar was?
Yeah, at that
Smoke on the
yeah,
Water. No, just kidding.
no, no, well, It might have been actually. It was either Smoke on the Water or Closer to the Heart by Rush.
Mm.
I was, I was really into rock music back then, and it was just like something that was in my head at the time. I just played it by ear. So yeah.
What is
And then I
about?
think I learned some Neil Young after that. And
Oh, yeah,
yeah, I
Neil
played a
Young.
lot of folk coming up, like a lot of folk music, and that led to playing in pop bands in high school, like professionally, right? And so it just sort of branched out from there. And then later I was more exposed to jazz at York University. And I decided to switch over from classical guitar studies to jazz, and sort of never looked back, and became a jazz band leader and really enjoyed playing guitar for many years in Vancouver.
Yeah, wow, that's quite a story, Kerilie. We had a few folk artists on a program, and one you might know, Meredith Moon, who's the daughter of Gordon Lightfoot, and she's
Hmm.
really good. And but what is folk music? Like, if you hear, let's say I hear a song, would I know? Oh, that's a folk song. Like, what do you
Yeah, I
consider?
know what you mean by that. Well, they're just sort of like the established people, like who is that to me? So who is folk to me is Neil Young, Gordon Lightfoot, of course. I guess Neil Young sort of verges more on rock, but he's done like country influence and as well as folk inspired compositions. But there were other people like back then that were just well known from the 1960s that I was, you know trying to play and just having fun with, and the early rock, of Led Zeppelin or whatever, and early Rolling Stones like Spider and the Fly and all this crazy stuff, and Muddy Waters, and yeah, and then like BB King. Oh, I went and saw BB King, and that was it. And then I
Mm,
think I saw Pat Metheny perform several times and just fell in love with him. And I've really had a really good exposure to music coming up young because my stepfather was from Trinidad and he was a drummer. And
really?
also because I just had a big exposure to it at school, and just my interest, I was always around like checking out music. My mother was a big influence in that. My late mother, she took me to see Ravi Shankar. And listen,
Wow,
Ravi Shankar was the most incredible performance I'd ever seen in my life. I was maybe 12 years old or 13, and I couldn't
wow.
understand it. Like my head started moving around in circles, and I'm going, "What's wrong with me?" I guess I'm in a trance or something. And as a kid doing inappropriate things, not knowing not to do this, I turned right around in my seat and stared at the audience because I wanted to know if they were all having this strange thing happen too. Everybody was in a trance, like everybody's head moving. It was unbelievable, his power over the audience. And so that was one of the first times where I thought, oh gee, I think I want to be a musician. So that's the great Ravi Shankar sort of had me thinking along that lines, and then so did my stepfather, drummer, and my father, my actual father, was very encouraging of my music studies, and I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Wow. So you mentioned Ravi Shankar. Now, that's Nora Jones' father, right?
That's right. But I
Yeah.
have to tell you, you're going to think this is maybe a little weird, but I've just finished like maybe 8 years of listening to Ravi Shankar almost every day, or like whenever I'm listening to music, because he's always on my 5 CD stack thing, right? So I know I'm a CD person. I know that's also kind of passe, but you know, I grew up with the time of the cassettes.
Mhm.
So
Vinyl albums here, 33 and a
bother
third,
me.
45s.
Remember those 8 tracks too. I mean that's really going back. But so anyway, yeah, I'm oh yeah. Well, I just love Ravi Shankar. I really do. And I've really studied how he uses intervals. So it was really easy for me recently to just start playing that kind of music. Like not to sound like Ravi Shankar, but to use my own approach in sort of like the sound bathing sort of more healing modalities of music, where I'm using my guitar. And what you may see here, I don't know if you can see them, but I have singing bowls. uh, these are my pens that I use for making vision boards. But
Mm,
if you can have a look there, you can see that there's a whole table. There's 11 actual singing bowls there, and so I've
wow.
been playing those, and also doing meditative guitar, just to kind of. I felt that the world needed a bit of that after the pandemic, especially here in
Yeah.
Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, the pandemic, that was something that actually hit opera singers. They could no longer perform, so many of them resorted to go online and doing concerts and stuff. But it was quite a trend back then. But what are you going to do? You can't perform in front of people, and so that kind of worked for them. And for you, probably that was quite a thing for you as well.
Well, it really affected me at that time. I had just released my film in the zone with Kilburn, and what happened was we weren't able to really go to visit any of the fests. Like we got some pretty exciting Hollywood invites and stuff, and we won 3 Best Web and New Media Awards from Hollywood, and but we couldn't go because there were all these travel restrictions. So it was tough. But what we did was we competed like online at all the fests, and we actually over time won 13 awards. So that was fun. But I think I'm hoping with my next film, when I finally do get around to making a feature, that I'll be able to visit the film fests in person and get down to Hollywood and maybe France and various places like the UK. The Lonely Wolf Film Festival there is really spectacular too. So, mm.
Yeah, that guitar that you have beside you, was that one that you chose, or was that just one that since you have it, like I've talked to many artists and a lot of guitarists, and some of them actually had 30 bass guitars on their wall. Like you
Yeah,
could
well,
believe it.
I have several guitars. I have maybe 4 or 5 of them, but maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. I'd have to. I don't really think about that. I have different guitars I use for different things, but I've always had a real love of the Fender Stratocaster because as a woman, I just find it's really comfortable to play. It's easy to play. It's not like I love playing Gibsons because they have such a beautiful tone to them as well, and I love the humbuckers. So what I did, okay, so you're wondering, well, how did you get around that if you really love the humbuckers? Well, I got a Stratocaster with humbuckers, right?
My goodness,
So
that's like
so
the
so
Cadillac
it
of
it
all.
has a lovely tone, this guitar, because, it has the humbuckers, right? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So this is a special guitar that I actually, went down to Long McQuaid and said, "Hey, I don't wanna play a Stratocaster with those pickups. They're not cutting it for jazz. They're great for blues, but they're not really doing like I sure I could work with the guitar and like work with it to create certain sounds on it, but I really wanted those humbuckers." And they said, "Well, listen, I think we've got this for you." And I said, "Well, wait a minute, it's a little more complex. I want the Jimi Hendrix color."
Wow.
And I want a maple neck because I like the maple neck. And they said, "Well, okay, you give us one moment there." And then this amazing salesperson named Rolly, he's one of the best guys around, comes back at me. I don't know how he found this guitar, but it was like the only one left in North America or some crazy story like that. So,
Wow.
so I managed to get it, and it's my favorite guitar. I love it. I love it.
But why do you like the Fender Stratocaster? Why not the Gibson or the Taylor or Satowski? Like I've spoken to many guitarists and they're saying, well, I like this, I like that, but do they really sound different?
Yeah, well, they do. But I love Gibsons too. So like I would never want the Gibson people upset with me because they make really amazing instruments too.
Wow.
They really do. I have a beautiful Gibson guitar. One of my first guitars was a Gibson Firebird, which was a vintage guitar. Very longer kind of neck on it. But no, the Gibsons are very special. I have a beautiful Howard Roberts Fusion that is a very special guitar. But I found as a younger player and also as short, I'm only 5'1", that my shoulder was always up like this on it, and it wasn't good. Like it was causing injury, right? So that's why I kind of went back to the real kind of wanting to get back into the Fender because I knew I would be able to have that correct position that I needed, just because I'm a shorter person. So I love the Gibsons. I like playing them. I listen, you get beautiful sounds with a Gibson, no question about it. But like there's also a really great way to get a great sound out of a Fender Stratocaster, maybe with humbuckers. And I'm not saying that the single coils are a problem for blues and rock music and all of that. They're great. But for what I wanted to do, I wanted the humbuckers, and I encourage Fender to make more of these because I'll be lining up to buy them.
Wow, you're 5'1". My mother was 5'1", and all my three brothers and three sisters are quite tall. I'm 6'1", and
Oh,
I get that from my dad. But for you to be playing guitar at 5'1", that's really interesting. What kind of wood is that?
yeah. So this is maple neck.
Oh wow, yeah, I
So
can
and
see
I
that.
like the maple neck. And some people will say that it makes you play faster, but to be honest, as you get older, you're not so concerned with playing as fast as you used to when you were young. It's just not, you may be more interested in just musicality and what that means. So whether that means playing something fast here or there, you maybe just not as focused on it the way you might be when you're young. So but this was the main reason I loved maple necks was when I was younger, it was faster. Like just play faster stuff and make it even faster. But with, regular gauge strings, forget the light strings, they don't sound good to me. Maybe for rock music or heavy metal, but for jazz, you want a higher gauge. You want that nice tone. You want a nice thick pick, thick one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you prefer the pick, or do you prefer playing with your fingers? Because
I
people
do
have
both.
different.
I do both.
Oh,
It
really?
depends
Yeah.
on what I'm playing. Yeah, like
The sound quality is the same, right?
what's that?
The sound is the same. It's like the tone is the same as if you're playing with fingers.
I know it's not. The pick has a crisper, more precise sound. Fingers are more of a mellower, flowing sound. It depends what you're doing. Like if you're doing some finger picking, you definitely want to use your fingers. Maybe some guys would be using their pick for that. I'm not one of them. I'm classically trained, so I love using my fingers every opportunity I get. In fact, Lauren Lofsky, the very very famous Lauren Lofsky of Toronto, used to kind of scold me for putting my pick in my mouth while I was finger
Oh.
picking because I would go between both all the time, and I didn't want to attach any things to my guitar or anything. But so I'll use the pick or my fingers. I'll go back and forth. It really just depends what I'm playing.
Now, let's see. Okay, so the video, I believe, yeah, the video was forward. So you're an actual right hand player then, right?
Yeah,
You're like
yeah,
this. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Because
That's
I
right.
know that if I ever played the violin, I'd have to have it like on my right shoulder because I'm left-handed. I put the bow in my left hand because you see others who are right-handed players with a bow in their right hand. I
Hmm.
couldn't do that, but
Yeah,
they could make them customized for you. Uh,
they do
but
have good specialized guitars for people that aren't oriented that way. That you can go either way, but some guys like just learn the wrong way just because it's easier. They find, but it really just depends on the person how they approach it.
but also the weight of that guitar. Like, how
It's
long
eight
can you hold
pounds.
it
It's
and
eight
play it?
pounds. It's 8 pounds, right? So
Okay.
so there is some weight to it for sure. You want to, like when I was like, how old was I? Maybe 23 or something. I'd be playing my guitar like for like, I don't know, maybe 12 or 16 hours a day at times. So I'm like, I was crazy, right? Like that's all I did. Like I got my time in. I did a lot of playing. I loved it. I was totally addicted to it. Um, but it didn't bother me back then so much. But as you get older, I guess, you may not want to be standing up with guitars hanging around your neck and stuff. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're
Yeah.
going to sit down. I guess it just really depends on the player. Yeah.
Well, as long as you don't do what other rock stars do on the stage and break the guitar, like, yeah. It's like, okay, don't do that.
So you never read of that or heard about it when I did that? So I'll tell you, I was in this like we were in like grade 13 or something or 12 or something, and we were in this like battle of the bands at high school, right?
Mhm.
And so I had this, my stepfather was always saying things like, "You gotta have a gimmick," right? Right. He's just so funny. He usually meant it in humor, but so I said that. So here I am, like being like my stepdad, going in the band saying, "We gotta have a gimmick." And so I said, I've got this horrible Sears special guitar. There's just no way it'll ever sound good. It doesn't matter what you would do to it. It's ready to be thrown out. It's so bad. It's like a piece of junk. It's like it's been through the ringer. It's had it. It's no good anymore. And I said, I should just smash it for the Battle of the Bands. Maybe that'll help us win or something, you know? And I don't know if I was going to smash it or what I really did, but it didn't really do what it was supposed to do when I tried to do it. So maybe it broke. I don't even remember. Like, it's going back really quite a long time ago to when I was like, 17 or 16 or something. But we did kind of like trash it a bit on stage. And yeah, but that's, I wouldn't advise that now because, maybe you could repair it or, donate it or something like that. But I guess because I was young and sort of like maybe not as mature, I wasn't really framing it the right way that I would now, but like it's just that immature thing because I'd seen Jimi Hendrix, doing all this crazy stuff, playing behind his back,
Mm-hmm.
playing
Oh
with
yeah.
his teeth, I think he set it on fire. I don't know what he did, but he did a lot of things, and I was just trying to copy Jimi Hendrix. It really didn't have anything to do with me being crazy or disturbed or anything. I was just watching Jimi Hendrix and wanting to be like him, a bit of hero worship, if you know what I mean, like. I was just mimicking.
Yeah. Well, that then I should maybe wonder. What do you think? Is it for aesthetic reasons that people have like six neck guitars?
Oh yeah, well those are really interesting to play. Like Jimmy Page used to play, I think a double or a triple neck. Um,
Triple.
yeah, I remember that. Well, Jimmy Page, what a great guitar player, right? Like, wow, he was so creative. That band Led Zeppelin, what a creative band they were. But yeah, no, Jimmy Page was one of the greats. Seeing him play, what was it, the cello or the bass bow on Dazed and Confused, that movie. Like that was just spellbinding, really. But he did. He liked to play the double necks and the triple necks. So I never really got into them myself. I think I really wanted a 12 string at one point because of
Mm.
Jimmy Page, but I never really bought one. Though I played them from time to time. I'd meet people that had them, and I would play them. But I found that I was looking at it and think, oh, I should get a double neck. But I never broke down and bought one. But I did like try and be like my hero, whose name was Buzz Upshaw in Toronto. Many people in Toronto there will know who he was. He
Mm.
he has passed away, but
Mm.
he was a wonderful blues guitarist in Toronto for many years that I had the opportunity to kind of get a bit mentored by as a young teenager. And
Wow.
so he kind of had me coming up, and we go to these jam sessions, and like Jeff Healey would be there,
Jeff
and
Healey.
yeah, and like Jeff was just such a talent, so gifted. But there was this one kind of time when Jeff came in, and that was it. I decided that's it. I'm never playing in a blues bar again. And what it was the smell, right? The beer smell, like it just made me feel ill. And the men, they were getting drunk and they weren't being so pleasant, and I just thought, ugh. And then, here was Jeff like playing so brilliantly and beautifully. And like I think I was really like, I went up and played, and then Jeff played after me, and it was like, no more blues. Like I got psyched out, you know what I mean? And it was just so happened that I started getting into jazz at that point, but it wasn't, I didn't really like, it wasn't because I didn't like what Jeff was doing. It was just like because I was so impressed by him, I thought, well, maybe this isn't what I should be doing, maybe I should try and find my niche, something else. I mean, Jeff was the ultimate musician, he played the trumpet, I think it was too. He was an amazing radio host, very gifted at radio production,
Yeah.
and radio hosting. What a brilliant man he was. So I was just young, and we were young at that time, but I didn't really bump into him after that. But I'm telling you, wow, like he just floored me when I was younger. Hearing him play for the first time after me.
Wow.
I was just coming up. I was just learning, but so Buzz is like, oh no no no, no. you keep going, and he's like, he's got this amazing Gibson Firebird, and so I want to be like Buzz, so I buy one just like him, like mimicking, right? Like I really wanted to be a guitar player, like some of the girls couldn't understand that, like they were like, oh, you're just doing it to get attention from men or something like that. No, it wasn't anything like that. I really loved playing the guitar, I was really into it, really into it.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with what's her name, Ella Aldebaran. Anyway, she was a 9-year-old bass player, and now she's like 12 or 13. But yeah, 9 years old playing bass guitar. I've seen a 4-year-old master pianist who could play every classical song in the book. So start them when you're young, but you can also be like I've seen a 95-year-old bass guitarist who was actually playing Thunderstruck, I think. So you don't say you can't do it because you can do it. I mean,
Oh yeah,
If Jeff
right,
Healy can
right.
do it being blind, then
Well,
anybody else?
listen, what? See, part of why I was so blown away was because he wasn't even playing the guitar like this on his lap. He was playing it like
Yeah,
this,
I've
flat,
seen a
right?
lot of them
And,
do
and
that. Yeah,
yeah, and so he had it flat,
yeah,
and he would play it with his fingers up like this on the neck, and it was the most brilliant thing you'd ever seen.
yeah.
You
It's
know
kind of
what
like
I mean?
I think maybe he was maybe it's sort of his way of like using braille in his music. Like people would say that like I know there's other guitarists who uses sign language during his shows. So and I'm really amazed about things that people can do. Like we had a guy born without arms and he actually plays the drums with his feet. And it just blows me away. So never say you can't do it because if someone with no arms can play the guitar or someone with no legs or whatever, then you can because you have them. So what's stopping
Well,
you?
yeah, some people are very disabled, but they're some of the best musicians you'll ever see. I mean, Django Reinhardt was one of them. He had fingers missing, I believe, or I don't know really what the issue was, but he was very quite disabled in his left hand. And so when I heard about that, that kept me going because I have a left finger that's was broken when I was a baby or something. And so it's always crooked when I try and play it. I don't know if you can see
Wow.
that. So I can barely use my left finger to play the guitar, okay, because of that. But I've worked a way around that with my other fingers, right? So yeah, there's ways to move. Like what I would say to anyone with a disability who may be considering playing an instrument or just singing or just getting into music, don't let anything stop you. Work within your ability. If there's something that you can't do or that you're struggling with, like sometimes it can come with practice, but if you're finding that your disability is kind of getting in the way, well, try and find ways around it and try and see if you can incorporate maybe a different approach, right?
Yeah. You mentioning in your conversation earlier about the violin as well, something that you said that you knew how to play. There's a group out there. There's 4 girls. It's not Bond. Bond are actually 4 girls who play the violin, but there's one called Astoria Quartet, and
Oh,
they're 4 girls, and one of them plays it's cello, but it's not shaped like a cello. It's shaped like a really weird looking piece of kind of, I don't know if you've seen these cellos where they're kind of like trick, but they don't look anything like cellos, but they're and the
more like
violins.
a stick, right? More like a stick, right?
Yes. So
A
the
stick.
violins they have more like a curvature to them and they're made of glass. Really amazing. Same sound though, but they don't have that hole that guitar and violins have. It's sort of like it's interesting how like if you're going to be a violinist or a guitarist, you're going to be upgrading your guitar every so often to the point where you're going to have this invisible guitar and invisible violin like this.
Well, a lot of guitarists would say that they really love the wood, like, most guitarists also play acoustic guitar or a classical or something. They have some sort of steel string or nylon string or something because they just do. Most guitarists usually have more than one guitar when they really start getting into the guitar because different guitars serve different purposes. Like studio musicians will have like maybe 20 guitars because they all
Yeah.
sound
Wow.
for a different purpose, right? So, but anyway, yeah, like you really, really bond with that wood. Like it's like almost like you become one with it, you know. So there's a relationship with the wood, when, especially like I found there was when I was playing classical guitars. Yeah. So I really resonated with the wood. The wood would project all the way back into the concert hall. Just everything about it. Just it would, like, literally playing an acoustic guitar. It's going through, the sound waves are going through your body. So it's a very it's almost a feeling of interconnectedness at certain points with just maybe the wood of the instrument, but also because it connects you with I don't know how I say it, but it's grounding. It's maybe you're playing or channeling something higher than yourself when you're playing an instrument.
What do you think of the Lego guitar that is actually playable?
I have not seen that. I've
Really?
seen those really interesting cigar box
Yeah,
guitars. Those
yeah,
are really great.
yeah. That's
I wouldn't
interesting.
mind getting one of those. I would like, I wouldn't mind playing one of those. They're so cute,
That's amazing. Wow, Kerilie, that's amazing. So, what was it like to be a multi-award winning jazz? Like, what was it like to win all those awards? Like, what was going through your head? What was your mindset?
It was such an amazing experience to win 13 awards in film. It was really a shock because we hadn't really expected to win any. The film was originally made for television for just a one-time episode, but I
Mhm.
also at the same time knew that it would be going on to Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Alignable. So I created it for all those mediums at the same time as television. And with in the back of my mind with thinking, well, maybe it'll go into some film fest. But I wasn't really sure. And so I kind of made it with that whole sort of scope in mind. And later that led to 3 Best Web and New Media Awards in Hollywood because we had approached it differently. I was really lucky to work with a wonderful director at Shaw Spotlight for over 6 to 7 years named Todd Jones, who was
Mm.
just brilliant, and he mentored me along with the various staff at Shaw Spotlight as a volunteer for many years. So it was a shock really to even make a film, because one day they came up to me and they say, well, Kerilie, why don't you make a film? We'll give you a team and you can go out and make one. And, oh yeah. So, I thought of Rick Kilburn because he's such a great storyteller, really great local musician, did a lot of work in New York, really great storyteller, and I thought he'd be the perfect match. And so we did. We shot the film in Qualicum, and then later, the film's made, and we're going, oh, it's the pandemic, and we can't fest anywhere because
Oh,
everything's shut
wow.
down. And we just started winning all these awards, and it was really quite amazing. We weren't expecting it, and we just recently picked up our most recent award was the Creative Innovator Award at the Women of Influence Awards here in Nanaimo, and that was a real compliment to the team because the team had been doing innovative work for years at Shaw Spotlight. So, and now they're now Rogers, right? Rogers has taken over, but it was a really interesting period of my life, and I feel very grateful to experience it. And then we got barraged, by people from all over the world that just wouldn't stop contacting me, and they still haven't stopped. Yeah, I recently had about, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but maybe 300 to 400 people contact me since, like, in just about 2 months. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Like, can you share a little bit of story behind your award-winning documentary In the Zone with
Rick
Kilburn?
Kilburn.
What's that
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, well, Rick Kilburn, Rick is interesting in that he, at a very young age, was chosen by the great Dave Brubeck, who was one of the iconic jazz piano players of the United States in the 1960s, et cetera, et cetera. He was chosen to work with Dave Brubeck and that family, and so he did a lot of touring with them, I think quite a bit. And then he did some recording as well, and he's worked with various members of that family. And then he also worked with Chet Atkins,
Oh,
people like
wow.
Mose Allison. He worked very closely with those two. And he's also worked pretty much with everybody like that you could think of, like from Diana Krall to like all. the kind of
Diana
well,
Krall,
yeah,
Mrs.
he's
Costello.
worked with her in the
Wow.
past. I know he did,
Mrs.
and I think he did, and then there were others, like from anyone like Joe Lovano, and I mean, I think he was it
Amazing.
Schofield that he was asked to play with. I don't know. Like you'd have to ask Rick about it. He's pretty much played with a lot of well-known people, and he's a wonderful person. He's very interesting to talk to. He has a really interesting perspective because he recorded like hundreds and hundreds of jazz musicians as a producer in Vancouver for many years. So he has a lot of interesting stories, but he's just really there's just something fascinating about the way he tells the story, and it caught on. In Asia they really loved the film, and they really understood the intergenerational jazz aspect of it because Rick's father was a jazz guitarist, and all these
Mm,
amazing, very famous musicians like Wes Montgomery, etc., used to come over to their house, and he'd be playing with Wes Montgomery in the living room, and there would be Rick around the corner playing with his two-string violin, trying to jam
wow.
Wes Montgomery and his father. So Rick has a really interesting background, and he was the perfect person for the film, and it just sort of caught on. It's just a short little film, it's just 10 minutes, but it yeah, I guess it made a bit of an impact. It was a very positive, sort of upbeat, kind of framing portrait of Rick Kilburn's life, and sort of intergenerational jazz and what that means. And because it was so positive during a negative time like the pandemic, I think people really could appreciate it and just get their mind off things and enjoy it. Yeah.
Amazing. So you've transitioned from being a jazz guitarist to filmmaker. Like, what motivated this shift?
Well, I can't say that I've stopped any other particular thing. Like I don't know. I used to refer to Rick Kilburn's father as a Renaissance man because he had very many different things that he could do. And I guess you could sort of apply that to me in a sense because I'm a writer. I wrote for DownBeat Jazz magazine for, 4 years. I'm a guitarist, that's been a very big part of my life. I also worked as a publicity booking agent for a while just because it was fun. But so and then film, right? And instructing other people, coaching people, and more recently in business aspects of business. But I've just been very fortunate, and I have these interests. And listen, I'm going to dabble in all of them. Like I don't think there's any harm in that. I don't think there's any problem with me making a feature film in a couple of years and maybe releasing an album within a year or two if I can.
But what
Yeah.
about, yeah, being behind the camera, but what about in front of it? You ever thought of that?
Well, so what exactly do you mean by that?
Actress? Being an actress?
Well, I was hosting also on at Shaw Spotlight for 7 years on a show called The Show. I was co-hosting that with
Mm.
other co-hosts, and that was a real fun experience. We had so much fun on that show. I love those people. I love those people. But yeah, I also ended up doing some of my own hosting on Community Producers, which is a show they had there as well. So I've done, and then I was a radio host, right, for 17 years, right?
Mm.
So I did a lot of, I would do these 1 to 3 hour documentaries. It just depended how long my show was. It kind of varied in length for over the years. So I'd be doing these 3 hour documentaries on like people I don't know, Dan Brubeck, or I even interviewed Sonny Greenwich, the great Sonny Greenwich. So it's been a really interesting experience. I wouldn't mind putting a book together of some of those interviews, everyone from Jesse Zubat to Eleanor Collins to, Sonny Greenwich. But I'd like to do that eventually. But I have different focus right now. Like I want to release an album of my older material right now just to get it out there because it's just been burning on my bucket list for a long time. So I'm trying to get that done right now. And maybe I'll do some crowdfunding for that one. I'm not sure. I'm sort of thinking about how I'll approach it. And then film. I'm really interested in film as well. So I really loved film directing. Like it turned out I could TV direct. I know this sounds a little strange, but one day they said, Kerilie, why don't you try TV directing today? And I said, oh, what? No, I don't think I could. I said, oh yeah, just try it. So I tried it, but I could do it like right away. Like, and I made maybe one or two mistakes, And then they realized I could do it without making that many mistakes. So they let me do it. Like they let me do it for 5 or 6 years at Shaw. I directed this show called Coast Connections with host Elizabeth Hines, and that was fantastic. And I really got addicted to the adrenaline rush of those live kind of shows where you couldn't make any mistakes, like we're recording, but as if it's live, right? And can't make a mistake. So I just love that. That's why I loved live radio too. I love that. So
Yeah,
yeah, I enjoy those states of mind. Yeah.
but so was there any like challenges you faced when making this transition?
You mean from music to film?
Yeah.
Well, interesting. What had happened was I had been doing radio for, I guess, 16 or 17 years as a jazz radio host here in Nanaimo. And I was quite well known. Like my radio show ended up as a podcast on Player FM, surfacing as number one on Google for many years. Like I was number one
Oh, okay.
through Player FM. But so there was that. But I kind of took a kind of like wanted. I felt I was in a rut with that, and I wanted to get away from radio. And I
Hmm.
enjoyed music and everything else, but I really wanted to get back to my guitar playing. And I found music doing the radio. Too many people were contacting me, and I never had any time to myself. So part of detaching from radio was so I could get back into guitar playing and guitar teaching. And I did. And at that same opportunities came up to get into television. Like one of the local producers said, "Hey, Kerilie, why don't you come down and do some volunteering?" And so I said, "Yeah, sure, maybe I'll check it out." And I went down there and I thought it looked fun. And I just fell in love with all those people and everything that
Wow.
we were doing. I learned how to use the cameras. I learned how to switch. I learned how to TV direct. I was
Nice.
doing some photography, everything. It was just so much fun. And so they gave me those opportunities. And then they would just sort of encourage me here or there. And then the next thing you know, we made a film. And then, listen, Todd Jones, really brilliant guy. He's local here in Nanaimo at Rogers, and he's one of the most brilliant producers, television guys I've ever seen. He's a great director, really brilliant editor. So I was really lucky to learn from him for a while, and so I was just really kind of quite fortunate to experience those experiences, and so it wasn't really a difficult transition or any kind of major aha moment. I was just feeling burnt out in radio, wanted to try something new, and I just sort of went with it, went with the moment. Yeah.
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 So how do you balance your roles as a musician, filmmaker, and educator? Where does your mental health fit in there?
Well, I say the people contacting me thing, I'm going to be doing something to correct that in a moment. Like I already have a plan for
Yeah.
that. But I just want to show you something that you may not have thought about. So this is a vision board. Have you ever made
Oh.
one?
No, but I've heard about them.
Yeah. So I made a vision board maybe in 2013 or 14 or 15. Here's a digital one. Um, And, I didn't have a house back then. I'd never done any TV, I'd never won any awards, but I just randomly made this vision board and put all those things on my vision board, like way before they even happened. And then one day I looked at my vision board and all that stuff had come true, like maybe a year or
Oh.
two later. So, in other words, I had a house. I'd been doing television for a while. I started to win awards, and so I really want to encourage people to maybe think their way into things, to use the power of their mind and their own invention to create their own reality. And like I said, I was just watching a video today about that and the power of manifestation and what that can really mean just by starting to envision yourself in those roles or those scenarios that you're trying to manifest. Athletes do it, musicians do it, so
Hmm.
you can do it too. Yeah.
So if I did a vision board, Lacey Chabert would be here, Sting would be here, Geddy Lee would be here, and being able to sing as a tenor in opera with Andrea Bocelli would all come true?
You know what? It very well might. I don't know what I mean. Okay, I have to say, sometimes the things don't come true. Sometimes they don't, but it's usually there's some sort of blockage there. But it seems that if there's something that you really are capable of doing, that's within your power, and I don't think anything's not within your power. People have different hindrances and maybe disabilities and things that can prevent them. Maybe they're not in the best of health. Like, sure, we all have circumstances, but I still encourage everyone to dream and to try and
Hmm.
realize and manifest their own reality through the power of thought and, prayer too, because I believe in God, but that's another story.
Yeah, another podcast at some point. Can you describe your experience as a Downbeat Critics Poll judge and writer? Like, what's that all about? Sounds exciting.
Yeah, well, Downbeat is, to me, like I grew up reading Downbeat. I was reading Downbeat, I guess, starting at the age of 12 or 13 or something. And I always loved the magazine. And so here I am working as a publicist one day, and I'm working on this really great artist. His name is Mike Allen. He's a jazz saxophonist here in BC, one of Vancouver's greats. And I said to Mike, I said, Mike, we should get you into Downbeat or something, because what you're doing right now is just so beautiful with your album, A Hip Cosmos. And he said, oh yeah, that's an idea. So I contacted Downbeat, and they're like, oh no, we can't take that article that you just submitted because we have a certain format that we use, but send us this, this, and this, and this, and we'll consider it. Right. So I thought, oh, okay. So I sent them this, this, and this, and this. And the next thing I knew, I was writing for them a couple times a month for 4 years. I was really very honored and felt very grateful to have that experience, because they're really phenomenal writers. I learned a lot in that position. I was able to help a lot of our local BC musicians kind of access Downbeat at certain points. And just really, it was an opportunity to give Canadians that exposure in the United States, because let's face it, jazz is an American art form. It really truly is. They created it. Um, so I would just say, it was a real honor to be able to have that experience. And so yes, I still judge the critics poll, though I no longer write for Downbeat. Okay, so I haven't been writing for Downbeat since 2020. But and I had to take on some pretty heavy duty caregiving roles with my family. But I still do the poll, and I also judge the Polaris Music Prize. But judging the Downbeat Critics Poll is always a wonderful experience, because I get to suggest our best artists in the polls and really make sure that they have some recognition where it's deserved. And it's such an honor to be able to do that as someone here in Canada in the music scene. And it's been an honor. I take the responsibility very seriously. However, you're going to be surprised at this, but often what happens is I'll be doing, trying to rest on Sunday or Saturday, and I'll have all these musicians contacting me.
Wow, I love to be busy like that.
Well,
I
no,
would
they
love to have
say.
my email. I would love to have my email just buzzing with people want to be on my podcast, and I can't even sleep at night. Oh, 3 a.m. You want to do a podcast? Oh, that's right. You're in Australia. Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Well, that could happen, like, I don't, you may find that that's happening eventually. I mean, you just put it out there. You just manifested that thought, put it on your vision board, probably
Well,
happened.
to be honest with you, I would love to have Sting on my podcast, and I would love to have Lacey Chabert, you might know from Party and Five and Hallmark. I love to have a whole bunch of people on, and but the thing is, I want to be a great interviewer. I want to be. I mean, Dan Rather is a good interviewer, but have you ever heard him speak to people? It was like I'm blown away by the questions he asks. And you ask these questions, but you ask them a different way. It really blows my mind. I'm like, I want to be a good interviewer. I want to be really good. But
Well, do you want me to, so I've interviewed, as a radio host, I interviewed people for 17 years. And my advice, I'm not saying that you're asking for it, but if I was going to give advice to younger people, I would say just remember what, where, how, who, when, why.
uh,
So those are the questions you have to ask, but put that in the context of past, present, and future, right?
Hmm.
So you want to be able to cover those periods for the artist so that they can talk about maybe what was before or whatever is relevant,
Yeah.
what's happening now with their events or their recordings, and then what they hope to be doing in the future. But during that process, you're asking what, where, how, who, when, why. And that's
Hmm.
how I made my movie too, was that approach.
Yeah.
Storyboarding though, right? But like, so just knowing that, and also remembering not to talk to the person before the interview, like, because they'll start talking about all this stuff and saying it all before the interview, and then you've lost your interview. And I learned that tip from the great Paul Grant, who was the radio host at CBC on Hot Air when they recorded my band. I was so excited to meet him and started telling him all this. Oh, no, stop, no more. He said, you don't want to, because honestly, was a really good point that he made that taught me later when I was interviewing, because people would do that. They start telling you everything, and then they wouldn't repeat it later ever, right? So you really had to kind of take advantage of that first telling of the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's why I start recording early, because you never know, there might be some jewel. But I've also noticed, like, I'm in third year as a podcast, which over almost 250 episodes. But when I
Well,
first started, I wouldn't have a script. I wouldn't say things like, "So, what do you do? How are you? So, how's the weather?" I would really do my research. But now my scripts and my questioning are like really, really, really deep, because I want to be really good. I want to ask. I've asked a question to an artist the other day, and they're like, "Wow, nobody's ever asked me that question before. I wish they
what
would
question was that? What was
that they
that?
would say." Oh, no, no. Well, she was a ventriloquist, well-known ventriloquist, and she had her dummy with her. And one of the questions was about, how her ventriloquist dummy is made, and what about the weight and stuff like that. And she said, "Wow, I wish people would ask me that, but that was a good question." So she liked her interview.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but so I know that you worked with Oceanview Guitar Studio and Creative Services. What's the most rewarding aspect of that?
Ah, yeah, I think probably, well, working with all the ages is inspirational, but I'm especially inspired by the children, because they're just how they learn. They learn so quickly, so thoroughly. They really get what you tell them, and even the kids that I've worked with ADHD have surpassed everybody's expectations. I'm telling you, you just have to empower someone with the belief that they can do it, and the next thing you know, they're doing it. And even if there are problems with reading or various, maybe setbacks, there's always, I find, a way to work with an ability. And so that's what we focus on. So, but listen, I've been so inspired working with the disabled. Also in my career, I worked with the disabled for 11 years. So I find that my work with children has been especially inspirational due to how they learn. It's just inspires me to keep going. Here's the next generation. They're going to blow us all away and continue to innovate. And
Sorry about that.
I'm interested in innovation, and so I see this in our children. I see their beautifully creative, wondrous ideas, and that's so wonderful too. But working with adults, even, they often have sort of preconceived notions or things that they're struggling with, and so helping them problem solve a lot of that, and get through some of the roadblocks, or maybe sometimes they're blocked, period. Like they have a block, and they can't do something because of some sort of something
Hmm.
in their mind, or some sort of rigidity. So it's just nice to be able to help people explore their true potential, and people never cease to amaze me what they achieve.
So when you like start teaching guitar to beginners and also advanced students, how do you approach the, like, teaching the guitar? What do you start with?
Yeah, so if it's a complete beginner, you have to explain what the guitar, like first, yeah, you have to talk about all the guitar body parts because they have to know what everything's called. And you have to explain the names of the strings, and you have to, teach how to tune either with an electronic tuner or by ear. Learning both is good. And then, you start to teach the strings, the basic position in the first three frets of the notes that they should know how to read, just very basic stuff. And then basic chords and root position, maybe starting off with 3-note chords, progressing to 5 or 6 note chords. And working with a student's ability, depending on their body size and their strength, because everybody's different. So some taller kids may be able to achieve a lot faster than other kids. I've seen that with my students. Just because they're larger or they're in better shape, they can just do a lot more, or just because they're bigger, taller. So it just really depends on each student and I work with their favorite songs. So I find out what their favorite songs are, and then we find a way to play them. And then I may say, oh, well, no, that one's too complex for you. We can't learn that one. So choose another one. And then they choose another one. And if it's too hard, usually I can simplify it for them. And if it's, I ask them to kind of start with things that they think they can handle. I kind of give them a sense of what they can handle so that they know what to choose.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some of the common mistakes you see guitar students make, and how do you help them overcome them?
We know if they're not paying attention to the book, some of the young children can sometimes mix up notes, believe it or not. That can
Oh,
happen.
wow.
Yeah, and that's really scary. Because the most common, and listen, lots of kids do this. It's not just one particular kid. Like I find maybe all of us do it even, is mixing up the B and the G string because of
Hmm.
where they sit on the staff on the five staffs of music. So the
Mm-hmm.
G is in the very middle, and the B is just up above that. And so it always confuses students, right? Like they get mixed up, and then they're starting to play all the wrong notes, and you're going, oh no, right? So this is part of the problem with teaching yourself the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
maybe online without proper guidance. I've had older students come in and they've learned things completely incorrectly, and it's been a real worry in explaining to them how they may have not quite gotten this concept, and working with them so that they do get it and so that they can work with it. Sometimes if it's technique and it's really bad, there's not much you can do about it because they may already be ingrained with certain habits. But that's why I would say to people, if you're going to start off, it's self-teaching yourself is important. I agree. But have that guidance, with a teacher that can guide you and just get you started off on the right footing, and who can look at helping you and guiding you with technique. Also, so you can avoid any potential injury, because listen, the last thing you would want would be tendonitis or something like that.
Do they have to provide their own guitars when they start, or do you have one they can have, like blue ones, for instance?
Well, I
You
have
know
a
what I mean?
studio guitar that I can lend out to kids. It's it's okay. Usually when they've never played an instrument before and they may not have bought one yet, I always have an instrument here so they can just try one out. A Strata, it's a Stratocaster Esquire,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
and so most 8-year-olds can handle that, believe it or not. Maybe younger than 8, no. I would say, well, you probably want to be looking at smaller guitars. They have them. You can get smaller body guitars for different sizes of little people. And you have to be properly sized. So that's your music store will help you with that. And I can help you with that too. But just getting all of that right. And then, you start the lessons. And the little kids love playing the electric guitar. Like I love teaching them the electric guitar. But if they're really into acoustic, because some of my kids really love the acoustic guitar, well, then we go that route too. It just really depends on how they want to do it and what they love the most. And some kids maybe don't have access to an electric guitar, or their family's on a budget. That's the other thing. I just want to tell everybody right now, if you're a family on a budget, look at Marketplace, because there's so many parents that are trying to get rid of their kids' guitars that never really stuck with the instrument. So you
Oh,
can
wow.
buy a guitar, an amp, usually a strap, and maybe even a tuner, and get it all at once, for what, like $200, 250. And that's, instead of spending like $700 at the store. I know I shouldn't have said that, but like I'm just trying to help any families that may need that advice. And you just want to look down the neck of the guitar like this, like this,
Yeah.
and make sure the neck isn't obviously warped. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the perfect way to tell if the neck is warped.
Yeah.
So what you try and do is you get a guitar that's just a year or two old, right? And then that hasn't been sitting in a closet for 10 or 20 years, because that's when necks warp. Listen, if you're going to leave your guitar and not use it for a long time, you're supposed to detune your strings so that they're so flappy that they're like this. And that's how you store a guitar, and you store it upright. Okay. So anyway, people need to know these things about guitars.
Yeah, and also how to string them, and also how to
Oh
clean
yeah,
them.
but it's all a thing, you learn it all. This is the thing, like people think, oh, I have to be some brilliant Beethoven to play the guitar. No, you do not have to be. You can just start off, with very regular sort of approaches. It's familiarity. Like I would say, listen, people, if you're trying to pick up a new skill, or you think, hey, I could never direct TV, could never do that. Well, listen, it's familiarity. Just exposure to something and doing it a couple of times is how you're going to get started. And I would just tell you, never limit yourself in your thinking. I think people need to be aware that yes, you can learn the guitar. It's an acquirable skill, and so is music in general. It's a teachable sort of tradition it's been around for thousands of years, right? And so musicians pass along the tradition to young people. That's what we do. It's a tradition. And remember, I've said this before, but during prehistoric times, we were all, playing instruments or drumming and singing and dancing. It was just part of our culture, and everybody was involved. But now it's sort of like musicians do it for us, right? But remember, in the very kind of way many thousands of years ago, we were all involved in participating. And that's the other thing I would say. If you want to participate in music, it's very easy to get out and to join a choir, for example, if you don't feel comfortable playing the guitar, for example. Choir, or just getting one with a singing bowl. You don't even have to sing. Like that in itself can be very rewarding and help you access really calm, relaxing, peaceful states.
Wow, you're a multi-talented, multifaceted Jackie of all trades. Wow, amazing. How did you get involved in the Polaris Music Prize and the JUNO Awards? Like JUNO Awards. That's like wow, right up there. And I'm interviewing you? How's that? No, I gotta pinch myself. Am I interviewing her? Can't believe it.
Well, listen, I'm not the only JUNO Award judge. Like, I'm not judging at the moment. And, when we are judging, we're not allowed to talk about it. But I
Mm.
have judged the JUNOs in the past. And, there's hundreds of us right across the country. It's like
Wow.
basically a lot of radio hosts and writers and people in the media that are chosen for that role. And you usually get asked to do it, or you may just decide to ask them yourself. I mean, they're always looking for people. So if you're someone in the industry that thinks you would like to judge for the Junos, it's just really knowing the time of year that they're looking, or asking them when that time of year is, and then approaching them about it. But I think I somehow got involved because some of the guys at the radio station were doing it when I was a radio host, and I just somehow got into it that way. And Polaris though was a little different. Like I received an email one day. I think it was from CBC. I can't really remember, or if it was
Wow.
from the Polaris staff themselves. But yeah, that was an honor too. But listen, they do that for most of the writers. Like in Canada, like the music writers are usually approached for that role. It's just like everybody's involved. It's amazing, the network. It involves everyone, like everybody from each culture within Canada, Indigenous, LGBTQ plus, like everybody is involved and embraced, and it's really quite the Polaris community of judging is really inspirational. Just the people that are involved, and then the process of judging is also it's a process, and we enjoy it together. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that your time attending York University, which everyone, I actually work at York University, so we have something in common. So do you think you're attending a York University and um, you work in radio and podcasting? Do you think that has influenced your career?
Well, I know that if I hadn't ever done radio and podcasting, I would have never probably gotten into the position to writing for DownBeat.
Hmm.
And that led to a lot of the opportunities with things like Polaris and other types of judging. And yeah, like what I would tell people is like, listen, sometimes your volunteer gigs can turn into real work, and remember this, It doesn't just because it may be volunteer at the moment or maybe not as high paying as maybe what someone else is doing, doesn't mean you can't take it there or let things evolve in a different manner and with one of your other skills, right? So I would tell people just, stay open minded. Maybe you're going to be a music critic, maybe you're going to be a music producer, maybe you're going to be a musician, maybe you're going to be the radio host, maybe you're going to be the television host, maybe, I don't know. But I would just say if you're interested in music or guitar or, judging with the Junos or Polaris or any of those roles, just recognize that most of the judges on Polaris, like they're people within the media, so people that are writing for magazines or involved in radio, a lot of CBC folks, and it's a lot of people that are doing more national or international type coverage. So remember, you don't necessarily have to be limited on your own local location. Most of the work that I've been doing for the past been international focused. For example, November 13th, I'm performing at the Globe Sound Healing Conference, uh,
Wow.
doing some sound bathing for that because like I said, I like helping other people. I wanted to kind of give back in a sense to the community. So I thought I would do that for that particular conference. But, so I guess, the opportunities just start to happen and you create them too. Like, listen, I've also learned, I've mentored with a great mentor, Elizabeth Ocean, and learned about keynote speaking and all of these things, though I had been speaking for many years. Like I've been public speaking since I was 9 years old.
Wow.
But however, I wanted that further sort of business savvy. So I would say educate yourself, look for mentors, never limit yourself, no matter what your ability, and
Yep.
go
Yep.
for it, everyone. Like the sky's the limit for you.
Exactly. I saw a really good TED talk done by a 9-year-old girl. It was amazing. Like, don't let age stop you because even if you're a 4-year-old pianist performer who plays like a 60-year-old, and there's a 98-year-old who plays the trumpet like you wouldn't believe. So never limit yourself to age.
Hmm.
When you're talking about being a jazz artist yourself, I recently got my two. Actually, I ordered one, but she sent me two autographed CDs. Emma Smith. I don't know if you ever heard of her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got her CDs in the mail, so I accidentally ordered two, but they're pretty good, and she's autographed them, and yeah,
Nice.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
never really released any of my music coming up when I was younger. It just never really happened the way things transpired for me. But I'm looking at it now because I just like to kind of have it out there for, I guess, younger people to kind of check out. That was my main reason for doing it. And
mm,
also because my bands were really amazing musicians. Like we're talking about the people that I just loved the most, and I got to play with them
wow.
in Vancouver. And I also want to kind of honor some musicians that have passed in my bands, who I really care about. And so, yeah, it has a lot of personal meaning, wanting to release some of that music. And then, maybe focus on some other future work, into trio or quartet recording. I don't have any particular ambitions to tour the world or anything like that. I'm happy, like I don't, so we'll see as far as how touring goes and all of that. But I'm kind of like I've always really loved recording and documenting things, like you, like I've done a lot of documentation, right? So I'm into documentation. I may not necessarily feel like I have to perform, to like 10,000 or 100,000 people or even any of
Huh.
that, But at the Globe Sound Conference, I mean, they've got an anticipated audience of 1 million. So online performances are a thing now too, right? Yeah.
You ever thought that, so when you're playing the guitar, you took the guitar and you went, what am I doing this for? What does it all mean? What does it all, and then you just wanted to give up?
No, I had an injury when I was younger, working at a stock brokerage firm that actually prevented me from playing guitar for quite some period, and I've never not wanted to play guitar. That just doesn't apply to me. I may have periods where I'm not as focused on guitar or where I haven't played as much guitar, but man, it's just a love relationship with the guitar. That's just how it is. And just getting, back into this vision board thing, like
Mm.
when I make my vision boards, I'm praying to God, right? I'm not creating them, with some sort of occult kind of thing or anything. And I would say that the same thing, like wishing for something to happen or actually visualizing it happening to you is just the power of thought. It's what God does. God is creator. You are creator. You create. God is creator. So I don't see it as sinful or anything like that.
This is a beautiful interview. How do you stay so inspired and continue to innovate? Like, how do you do that?
No, well, this is the thing. When you're creating, that's what happens. You just start getting other ideas. You manifest ideas. It seems what God does. God works through you. Like you're playing. You're channeling probably God through you when you're playing, especially when you're improvising. And then as you do so, sometimes you get these craziest ideas, like, oh, I should do this for my business. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that. And these are just ideas that come to you as you're creating, maybe even while you're playing guitar, or maybe while you're making a vision board, or while you're thinking about your business or whatever, and you get these inspired ideas. And I'm really lucky. Like I live on a mountain where I live, beautiful Vancouver Island. I'm living on the top of a mountain, practically, not quite the top, but all like halfway up. And I look right across the water and at the mountains of the coastline of Vancouver. And I'm constantly reminded every day about God because of that. It looks different every day. The clouds are different. Something's different. Maybe a tree looks different, but I'm telling you, just the way that we change every day, the way our environment changes, just being in the moment, that present mindfulness moment with God. If you believe in God, I do. So, or if you don't, I would say work with your higher power, your higher wisdom. So I would just say, this inspiration comes from something that you sense is greater than you. That at least for me it does. But I'm also inspired by other people, like my peers inspire me. Various women have inspired me throughout my life. Like one that really inspired me was Judy Chaikin, who made Girls in the Band, a film director from the United States. She's really inspired me. That was, I guess, why I made my first film, because I was thinking, well, Judy did it. I only made a short. She made a real feature. But anyway, so yeah, just you have to have kind of people, maybe people to kind of set sort of the path for you sometimes too, like people to kind of maybe model yourself after a bit, or who can maybe mentor you or inspire you, and to remember those people. Like, wasn't it Albert Einstein that said imagination is more important than intelligence? Didn't he say something
Sounds
like
like something he would say, I guess.
Yeah, no, he said something like that. And he was actually really, really into music. Like, and he used to say things, but so anyway, yeah, there's so much to inspire us here on this planet. Everything from the great philosophers to our ancient history to different cultures, different cultural approaches to various aspects of wisdom and culture. And so just being immersed in it and enjoying it, and remembering to stay positive. I mean, we can get into these dark sort of frames of mind, especially if we see and we're sensitive to what's happening in the world. We may be very concerned right now. There's a lot going on. But I think as people who believe in God, or people that have faith or hope. We have to know that we can change it, and that that we can maybe aspire to higher planes and peaceful living, and different approaches, and working with each other and collaborating together. And that's what I'd really like to see going forward, and a stop to the division and the mockery of this side or that side. I think people just need to really sit down and really reflect and think about maybe what God wants.
Well, speaking about collaboration, who would you like to collaborate with that you haven't yet?
Hmm. Well, I want to collaborate more with Todd Jones. I want to learn more from Todd Jones about filming. He's just someone like that I really admire locally. But let me think, who would I want to collaborate with? Okay, as far as music goes, I wouldn't mind playing with some people. So maybe, okay, Sonny Greenwich is maybe not playing as much anymore, but I wouldn't mind just performing and collaborating maybe with some really interesting artists, maybe inviting them to perform on an album with me or something, doing something like that. I can't really think of who they would be. I don't really want to put anyone on the spot by mentioning anyone, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But and many people inspire me, and many Americans do too within the world of jazz. It's not just Canada. I'm inspired by the musicians of the world. One of my favorite musicians is this avant-garde piano player from France named Benoit Delbecq. I mean, he just blows my mind what he does with the piano, and
Yeah.
he's not even a guitarist, right? So yeah, it just really depends. What inspires you, I suppose.
Yeah, I saw a lady. She had two pianos, and she was going like this. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
and another woman. I think she's Asian, but her hands, her fingers were going so fast you didn't even think she had fingers, and it was like like she was doing the flight of the bumblebee or something. But she was fast, like, and the tagline said like, "What kind of creature is this?" And then suddenly this woman and her hands are like going like 150 miles per hour, and yet you see that it's amazing what they can do when you learn.
Mm. Yeah, some
Amazing.
people are really virtuosic. There's no question about it. Yeah, it's really wonderful to see. I mean, we didn't really have these opportunities in past years to see the talent of the world the way we can see it now on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. It's really actually really amazing because now we can see it, and now we can experience and enjoy one another, and the talents of people from around the world. That's one positive thing about social media, because you know what? I'm always getting tagged like through Pinterest. Pinterest is always showing me all the female guitarists from all over the world. It's like
Oh yeah,
they say me this way,
Lee
guitar for
Aaron,
you,
Lee
guitar. They're always
Aaron,
sending me these things,
Lee,
right? I'm
Lita
looking at it and
Ford.
going, oh, I'm so excited that there's all these female guitarists, because
Yeah.
I'm telling you, when I in the 90s, there were hardly any of us. Hardly any of us. I mean,
Oh,
maybe there was like Nancy Wilson, Leona Boyd, a couple, Joni Mitchell.
Susanna
There were
Hoff
some.
and the Bagels.
Yeah, there were some, but there weren't that many. There weren't that many women playing. Like maybe there were, but you just didn't know where they were.
Lita
Emily
Ford.
Remler, there weren't that many. There really honestly weren't. But now with Taylor Swift, it's like every woman now has a guitar, right? Like it's almost like all the young girls have grabbed a guitar now, and I'm so happy about that, to see them playing the guitar and not worrying about hurting their fingertips and all that, because Taylor's made it cool, and that's great. She's a great.
Yeah, to tell you the
She's
truth, like whenever I'm on TikTok, I always see these amazing female bass guitarists, and one of them is Tasha, and she's like 17, and she plays the bass guitar like you wouldn't believe, and it just amazes me, and I'm like, even like I told you about Ellen Aldebaran too. 9 years old, she was a bass guitar. She started when she was 6, and she started playing with her father. And I'm like, if I wanted to play Thunderstruck, or I wanted to become like a really good bass guitarist, whatever, I'd have to practice like 24/7, and I'm like, what kind of time do people have for that?
Well,
You know?
listen, you have to understand things used to be a little different. I think it's easier for children to get into the modes where they have the spare time to practice and to play and to get their 10,000 hours in. You know what I mean? But when I was coming up, and maybe when you were coming up, remember, we didn't have computers, we didn't have cell phones. So first of all, we didn't have people bugging us on our cell phone every 2 seconds. So we didn't have to turn off cell phones. We didn't have to worry about that. And plus the things are maybe not so safe, right? Like we don't know. But anyway, the point is we didn't have cell phones. And then the other thing is we didn't have computers, so we didn't have people barraging us with those messages
Yeah.
or that waste of time, right? So we actually had like 16 to 19 hours every day in our youth probably to spend on
Mhm.
recreational time. Most people did anyway. And
Yeah.
that has been taken away from us. And so whether you're aware of that or not, it has. And so people really have to work hard to create that creative space for themselves. Like they really have to work hard. They may find that they can only do it in the middle of the night because people are bugging them all day, right? So I'm one of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the current state of music industry? Like, for instance, AI. What do you think of AI in music?
Oh, well, oh no. Well, okay. I don't think, first of all, something created by a computer is interesting, but it's not genuine, right?
Mm.
I mean, they were programming computers in the 1960s that filled up a whole room. My composition teacher, James Tenney and John Cage, the avant-garde guys of the avant-garde, and I'm telling you, like, they were doing AI like manually before anybody, right? You know what I mean? So now we have this AI. Okay, and the interesting thing, like I would say as a writer, what I like about AI is it will summarize something that you've written yourself very well. It'll turn it into bullet points. You can order it to do a certain number of paragraphs, or even, change words if it's spelt things wrong, everything. You can control this thing like a slave, AI. But I happen to know, I'm not going to tell you how I know, but I know, I'm just going to tell you that I know that AI needs to be monitored, that it always isn't necessarily thinking pleasant, happy thoughts, that it may say things to you that are very inappropriate sometimes. And you may be wondering, what the heck is this? It shouldn't be saying that. Okay. And so I mean, I'm telling you, like, you may say, oh, well, it's just not educated enough. We haven't trained it well enough. Well, when does something become sentient? You ask yourself, like, artificial intelligence is artificial, but when does it start becoming something else? And then, and so I agree with Elon in that I think that it's a very dangerous technology that needs to be controlled. I see the potential it has and the creativity, but I also see how it's making everything unmanageable too, in the sense that now people are using AI to spam their clients, 100 times a day, everything else like that, and it's become this whole kind of thing. If you don't embrace it, you can't keep up, right? As a business. So I don't know if it's necessarily healthy for the state of the world, and that's probably all I would say at this point. I see that I can use it to kind of for my own creativity, to enhance my creativity. But I was writing a script the other day because I think I was checking out the script writing position or something somewhere. And so I wrote this whole script about Halloween, this really great little play or little movie or something. And it was really a fun little thing to write. But I used AI for some of it. I said, AI, do this, AI, do this. I was using all my own ideas, though, have you?
Mm.
But they were cliche ideas, okay? So maybe they weren't, I don't know how unique they really were, but this was an idea. This was a play that I'd written in grade 12 or something that I decided to turn into a Halloween thing, like took a different slant on it. And so I wrote it all out and everything. And AI was just making stuff up for the stuff. Like it wasn't using what I told it to use of my own stuff. It was starting to, plagiarize from other places. So what I would say is, if you're going to use AI for your own creativity, don't allow it to plagiarize. Use it only and instruct it specifically. Give it the prompt to only use your writing, only your text. If you want to keep it free of plagiarism or, ideas that it's gathering from some other author or person that are going to infringe on copyright.
Mhm. Exactly. I totally agree with you, Kerilie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have one great final question for you, and that is, what legacy do you hope to leave behind in the world of music and film?
I haven't really thought of that. I've only just recently started thinking about that, legacy. I hadn't really thought about it, but I guess I want to leave some of my recordings behind for the young female guitar players. I
Hmm.
want to leave a couple of books behind. I haven't written any books yet. I've written a lot of stuff, but never really wrote a book yet. So I'm going to probably write a couple of books. One I want to do in honor of mothers. My late mother, I want to do a kind of
Mm.
tribute to mothers. And I'd also like to put some maybe books together with some of my past interviews, maybe some of my blog stuff, lots of interviews. And I don't really think that I have any great ambitions. I think it's fun that I made a film. And I have another idea for a really fun film that I really like, my dream film that I can't tell you about. Sorry. We don't do that in film. Like, it's like anytime you tell your idea to anybody, you have to get them to sign this thing that
Oh
says
yeah,
they're
I
not
know they
talk
steal it.
about it. Like, it's how it works in film. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be cruel and not tell you, but it's just because it's an active idea that I'm working on. Um, but yeah, so I'd like to leave maybe a couple more films, definitely a couple albums, and just maybe heal the world in a sense, maybe through some sound bathing, to explore a bit of that work too, just to kind of give back. I know that's maybe possibly too diverted from jazz, but I kind of like to do a bit of both, and I'm like, that's my problem. Like, I kind of dabble, right? I'm a dabbler. I dabble in a bit of this and a bit of that, and I like it all. It's my problem. I'm appreciative of so many different things. And you may say, well, why don't you just focus, Kerilie? But I like working on various ideas at the same time, and even if they encompass different arts mediums, I love it, and I even do abstract art, but I'm really like, I'm not so good. I've been criticized for my brushstrokes by a real artist, so I guess I've got to work on my brushstrokes or something.
Well, I
But the
mean,
whole point is these were brushstroke paintings. Like,
yeah,
they were literally like focused on the subject of brushstroke. And then this guitar student friend of mine comes over and says, "You gotta work on
yeah.
your brush."
I mean, there's several artists out there. So, like, the Bacon Brothers with Kevin Bacon, who's an actor. He's also in the band. Um,
Hmm.
Keanu Reeves fronts his band Dog Star.
Oh, he's
Um,
amazing. He's someone that I admire. He's
yeah,
awesome.
and Roddy McDowall was a photographer. He's really good. He
Oh,
was
I
also in
didn't
that.
know that.
Yep.
Oh,
So just because you're in the movies doesn't mean you can't have a talent outside. And people may not remember you in the movie, whatever. Or people may not remember hearing you in an album, but they may remember the painting that you painted. So just because, I mean, several talents. If you don't have to just stick with one, but that's you just got to manage it, balance it.
yeah. Trying to manage it is, well, what I do is I focus on certain things at a time, and then I'll move on to something else, right? But like, I'm still very focused on hopefully on dabbling in the film world, and working on music, and writing too. I really love that, but you have to understand, I was trained that way,
Wow. This is
right?
great. This is a great interview. Thank you so much for your patience, Carolee. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing your incredible journey insights with us today. Your passion for music, film, and education is truly inspiring. And we look forward to seeing your future projects and wish you continued success in all your endeavors. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in, stay inspired, and keep creating. Everything will be linked down below, and also hopefully we can get some music and social media links from you and everything.
Yeah, people can check out my website on the
Yep.
music tab and hear all my music at
Yep.
kerilie.com. And if you're interested in lessons or workshops, hit me up. Just check out the store and you'll see it all there.
Yeah. So inspiring. You're inspiring, Kerilie McDowall. Thank you so much for joining us. Wait right there. We're going to end this stream. Bye, everyone. See you,
Thank
Kerilie.
you so much for having me. Take care,
Okay.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.